for our fourth session. I want to try and keep us on time, so we're going to roll right over into our next portion, which will be our panel discussion and Q&A, and this will be moderated by Dr. Philip Davey.
All righty. Thank you very much, Jarek. So, can everyone hear me okay? Yep.
Yes.
I'll take that as yes. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Well, since Jarek has done such a wonderful job of introducing everyone, I'm not going to repeat that, except for a brief introduction for myself. And I shall follow the good examples that have already been set. I'm a middle-aged Caucasian male with brown hair, blue eyes, and I'm wearing a dark brown collared shirt with a background of a little bit of Hawaii there with the CDS logo. So currently working as an employment training director here at CDS on Project CLD teams, working alongside Jared, who you just heard from. So I'm going to lead us through some discussion points. I will highlight that all of our speakers today are going to participate in the panel discussion. I have shared a list of questions that we prepared in advance with all of our panelists, and I'm going to warn panelists now, we will not go through them in order, and we may not have time for all the questions. So it's become quite clear during the course of today's presentations that there are some points that are much more important than others, and I'd like to focus some of our questions around those. As we move into the questions, I may name certain panelists and ask them to begin speaking on a topic first, but please, any of the panelists who would like to contribute, jump in when you would like and add your comments as well. Okay, let's get started. So, it's become very clear throughout the course of today's presentations that employer feedback and employer understanding is an extremely important point. So, Hejan, if you don't mind starting us off, I'd like to ask, could you please share some common points you've heard from employers as barriers to bringing on employees with disabilities? And Dr. Hua, I'll ask you if you could start leading off with that question.
So the employers.
Yes, feedback you've received from employers.
Yeah, I think a lot of issues we hear from employers is they needed support. They don't know how to work with individuals with disabilities. And I'm particularly students I'm familiar with, they are students with autism spectrum disorder and students with intellectual disabilities. And then they have a lot of challenges in terms of a social aspect. You know, we can prepare students with a lot of pre-vocational skills, but then when they go to the real work place, they face a lot of, our language will be generalization. How do you deal with a variety of situations, social situations particularly? And then employers, it's their biggest concern is that how do we support and what are things we deal with it. It's like Ken Patrick was talking about the accommodation in the workplace. So what are things we can do, physical arrangement, the social aspect, what are things we need to do? So they do not have enough knowledge about how to help and how to work with individuals with special needs.
Thank you. I'm actually going to expand on that one a little bit and ask Dr. Yu, you mentioned something about required training that employers have to provide for all their employees. In the context of this situation, do you find that employers and particularly the workforce have less concerns after going through these training programs and having this enforced?
I mean, that answer will be, like more properly answered by my co-presenter because he is in the CEO of the company who hires people with disability in his company. I'm a professor, but I don't know much about the reality in workplaces. But I think, yeah, I think the training itself really helped the workplace, like other employer without disability understand the awareness of disability, but still it's not enough because it requires 1 hours per year. So it's not enough. Yeah. So still we have some kind of gap in the reality.
Thank you. And Tavi, you also mentioned that in Thailand, there's now this requirement for employees to bring on a certain number of employees who in their workforce. So what obstacles have you heard from employers as they try to get used to this?
Okay, yes. I agree with Yuji. Yeah, yeah, from China. Yes, they about the knowledge. Okay, the knowledge that they don't know how to help a person with disability, especially like invisible disability. Okay, like autism, neurovision, or that, yes, and yes, I think it's more than that. Not all about the knowledge, but I think it's about attitude too. The negative attitude and to reject absolutely. And they don't want to try to understand. When we say that you need to employ a disabled person, so first thing they say that, oh, I have no toilet, I have no lamp, and I don't know. But the first thing that they don't know what the type of people or the kind of that disabled people can do more, not just a visible appearance, but in their knowledge. And yeah, I think it might be mixed with knowledge and attitude, to to shut the gap, or no, to shut the opportunity, and to get no more to know how to encourage. So I think it is the big problem. Yes,
Yes.
no more accessible, no more lamb, and I don't know how to help them. Okay, but they don't know what kind of people, what kind of thing that you employ. That is the big challenge. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of uncertainty and lack of awareness that still needs to be educated on from the sounds of it. James, thank you for jumping in. Perhaps you can add a little bit on with regards to the situation in Korea and what you see directly from employers and their obstacles to hiring people with disabilities.
So the obstacles to employment.
Yes.
Yeah. One big obstacle is the gap between training and the reality, I think. Many disability-specific training programs are done in isolated or classroom settings. But workplaces are socially complex and fast-paced. So when people with disabilities enter the workforce, they often struggle with unfamiliar social situations, real-time problem solving, and stress from sudden changes. That's why we believe training must happen inside the real workplace, with support systems, mentors, and gradual exposure to real tasks and people, I think.
Yeah, that exposure to real tasks is a very important component. Patrick, perhaps that's something you would like to add some comment on to.
Yeah, one of the biggest obstacles, are, what disorder most people with disabilities face in employment is a reputation disorder. So it really comes down to building a relationship with a business, building trust. When we go out to a business, we don't say, "Oh, hi, I work with an agency that supports people with disabilities. Do you want to hire some of our people?" We go out with the approach, what's in it for them? So I say, I'm Patrick and I'm with Work Now Hawaii, and I'm here to learn about your business so I can better prepare people for the jobs that you have. So just not leading with, this is, I'm trying to get a job for people with disabilities. As a service provider, we also need to make sure that we don't perpetuate these stigmas by making bad job matches. So once you start to make good job matches, the stigma goes away, and then there's less apprehension about hiring people with disabilities.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Ken, you mentioned this as part of what you were sharing just now, and the importance of credibility and building the relationship with the companies you're working with. Perhaps you'd like to add on a little something there too.
A question that comes up at our in our experience, or questions that come up have to do with safety, workplace and worker safety. Will the students be able to function safely and not get injured? And another one is the costs of potential accommodations. But in practice, neither one of these has been a problem. But I like what Patrick said about the initial perceptions of what a person with a diverse ability brings to the workplace. And thankfully, man, our experience has been in our community that employers really want to help. They want to do their part. They want to advance opportunities for children in their community, period. And that's why that might be unique to, I shouldn't say unique to Hawaii, but we do see the Aloha spirit um, moderating many of these concerns. Corny, but that's what I've observed. People here uh, appreciate family, just like in Asia, all across Asia. Family is really important, and once prospective employers uh, understand what we bring, what we offer, how we can support them, uh, their support is unwavering. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
Jared,
thank you.
thank you, Ken. Part of what you do is working in the employer's workplace on training them. So maybe you can add some further perspective to that for what you've seen in Hawaii.
Sure. And just not necessarily to echo what was said, but the misconception piece is exactly the point. What's going to happen if they get hurt? How do I help if, because I'm not trained to help with this particular issue. If something happens, I'm not trained to respond. What do I do? And those are really some of the biggest things that come up about not knowing and not being prepared in the arena to be able to provide assistance. Like Uncle Ken said, there are a lot of employers, they want to help, especially here in Hawaii. They want to help. They want to give opportunities. They want to try different things because they want to learn about it. But the hesitation sometimes comes when, like, I don't feel like I have all the tools to bring that person here, or I don't know if I can make it work. There's another comment that we've had on the side about, well, let's get an accommodation. Well, how much is that going to cost the business, or where's that funding going to come from to help with that? Those are sometimes some of the hurdles, or sometimes some of the things that are discussed and we talk about like right away. So Dr. Davey, I hope that kind of answers or maybe shed a little bit extra light on what was already shared.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So I think that's built a pretty clear picture. But the fear of the unknown and some sense of duty of care over the employees that you're taking on are still significant obstacles. But I'm going to come back to James actually, because I think you shared a very nice framework there for talking about different stakeholder engagement and the process by which you need to go through in order to get good integration of people with disabilities into workplace settings. So, James, would you mind sharing a little bit more about who you think are the most important stakeholders in the process of getting and sustaining employment? You are on mute still. Would you mind unmuting, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Uh,
I think the most important part is the employer, and they have the sense to accept them. And I know most of the companies, they need professional support, but they cannot do this. So the social society, they can help them, and special education schools can offer some skill teaching. So I think the most important part is the employer, and the other parts, they can work together.
Thank you, John. While I have you, could you add a little comment about the role of the government incentive programs in gaining employer confidence to take these actions?
It is very difficult to answer this question.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I understand. I think there's been a mention, and perhaps Tavi, we could come back to you on this one as well, the role of incentive programs in ensuring employers play their part. Could you comment a little bit around how important they are as a stakeholder in this process and in making a social change?
Yes, I think, yeah, that I mentioned my lesson learned, not only the research, but in the reality, multi-sectoral is very important, so this is the big point, and yes, we start with like person with disability, their family, and for employment might be employer. But the big manager of negotiation or the bridge is about the government, to help together. So if you have like a strong or backbone, like a law or the more like effective enforcement, this will help more like those sector. Okay. Even we have like talking about customer employment is the philosophy, the mindset, change between like, a person with disability and employer, right? They need to negotiator, connector, that provide by someone. Okay, we may be talking about job coach, but job coach must be supported by the government or other sector who help them to talk together. Well, this is also even have like have a more punishment or like a penalty for the employer, because like in Thailand is a very strong enforcement, especially for the private sector. But even they don't want they try to follow and comply with the law, but some some approach, they don't get more benefit, when we hire the people in the company. Yes, the problem is about the supply side, that the knowledge skill of a person with it not suit to the market job or the performance, but nobody to help more. So the business don't want to pay money, lost the money in the national fund, but they need to get more. So they try to get like a section 35 that I said, that they hire like as some contracting, to promote or to train person with disability, equal to they have to pay for the money. And then they thought that one day they have got a benefit from their training, rather than to pay money loosely directly. So why the Section 35 is more popular for the business sector, because they need to help strategy, But now, no, the government, no job coach vocation or training more and like occupation in Thailand. But they help themselves, to train the person with disability and to create like a new innovation with themselves. So they try to do. But so that I mean employer and employer, that's important. Person with the need to more encourage or promote their skill, and they need also someone who like a connector. The big one is government's involvements. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think something that stood out a lot from what you were talking about was the role of raising awareness in a general educational setting. That seems like something special. And actually, Dr. Ryu, I wanted to come back to you on that point because you talked about you showed some very specific numbers for big name companies in Korea who take the being fined option, as Tavi was just talking about. But do you think there is, in the regulatory framework, there's a role for more general population engagement and education of understanding how to work with people with disabilities and what those different, raising awareness for those different disabilities?
I think that mentioned by my co-presenter, James.
James, sorry, I'm getting presentations mixed up. Thank you, Doctor. So,
Pardon, I can't hear the question.
okay, let me reframe that a little bit then. So you showed some excellent examples of successful workplace development with a lot of focus around people with disabilities. But do you think there is also a role for a general education setting to improve awareness of those with disabilities and get a broader cultural buy-in to having integration?
In Korea, education a lot of on measuring and certificates, not helping people at your work. So come and people with progress with education should be real life skills. So that's why we train people with disability through industry experience. We focus hands-on work, emotional support, and social skills. This approach works especially for those with mental or developmental disabilities. It's one reason our job retention rate stays above 90%, I think.
Wow, that is very high. I think that leads me into asking you part of the next question, which is, you showed some very successful examples. Do you see those translating well into other countries and into other regulatory environments?
We manage a branch in Philippines. So we managed the branch with the NGO called Mira in Korea, and we ʻIke Foundation. And we are planning to expand the branches overseas more and more year, I think. But now we are focused on the in Korea because there is a mandatory employment system, and there are so many companies have to employ people with disabilities, and they don't know how to employ and educate, manage it. So we have to them to just employ and give them.
But you've seen that working successfully in the Philippines then?
Yeah, managing beside Starbucks. each puff is over the subspace now. And
That's good.
there are 7 baristas, and the local baristas are working there, and their salaries higher than normal people with experience in Philippines.
Oh, that's good to hear. Jean, I feel like I should come back to you on this one too, because what you shared regarding the noodle restaurants, I think is comparable experience. So do you see that model translating well to other countries, or can you imagine finding a way to do that?
Maybe we can open the noodle shops to America. Yeah. Because I think the most important in the noodle shop is we put the shop like a real shop, and we think it's a business, so we have to make the shops live and healthy, so we can help more people, and we can copy paste, and improve all the procedures in the shops, and help more. Yes, it's possible. Yeah.
That would be good to see. I think this sort of passes back to you, Patrick, which is things that you've seen work well in Hawaii. Can you see them translating well into other states or into other countries?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we talk a lot about all of these social enterprise opportunities for training people with disabilities and employing people with disabilities, and we do have that in America, and it is a model that works. I think someone mentioned earlier, rather than just classroom based and not really being out in the community, you don't really get that experience to be successful. There's so many facets of employment that you don't learn in a classroom. So the work-based learning, and whether it be through social enterprise, I think those models work. But moving people directly into competitive integrated employment, I think that's also a model that needs to be considered. So the person-centered approach. Not everybody's going to be interested in, some of the models that we've seen in America and in Hawaii are the food, the janitorial or the landscaping, kind of just those entry level jobs. But if we look at what people want to do, not everybody wants to do all of the things that are available. So I think it's really important to look at a person as a whole. What are they interested in? What are they able to? And I think that can translate, because once you know, allow people to explore what they're interested in, and you provide them the tools and supports, I mean, it's just amazing what people are capable of.
Yeah, I think that comes to a bit about what's been mentioned of typecasting people with disabilities into specific roles, and a bit of a tendency to push them into menial positions. I think, Ken, maybe you could share some of your experiences, especially coming directly from high school, of trying to overcome that barrier.
No, I've been out of the large system perspective and position for over 15 years now. So all I have is a narrow school level perspective, and I have not found much in the way of any kind of barrier that couldn't be dissolved by just talking story, by explaining your program, and reaching out one to one.
Yeah, I think that's so. It sounds. I'm going to come back to Tabby here. Thank you, Ken, because what you're saying about making the personal connection echoes something we've heard from several of the presenters today.
I could say in the spirit of the HA policy, and this would mirror the UH's, your own university's strategic plan to honor the host culture. The word for that would be pilina, pilina, relationships. So building, developing a pilina for the greater advancement of the Kai Aulu, the community.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a common thread through at different stages of development, something all of our
Yes.
presenters have shared, right?
Sorry,
Yes.
I had to jump in. My name is Chad Sidari. I'm actually a resource teacher for the schools. Yeah, I work with the high school teachers that do transition plans that prepare them for post high school. So I think one of the big deals with it's are their post high school manageable? Like a lot of them, you can even ask them. They'll say, "Oh, I want to be a professional football player," and they're like 10th grade or 11th grade, and then they're not even playing football. So it's like it's like finding that happy medium. Like I had individuals say they wanted to be police officers, and then finding the happy medium, security. And I just ran into him like maybe like a while back, well, like 5 years ago, and he was actually the head security person at Restaurant Row, and I was like amazed. You know what I mean? So, there's ways to connect what their interests. And I like Lorraine Cruz is one of the teachers that does Project Search, and and you heard the term before, dream job versus realistic job. So a lot of them have their dream, and they would say, "Oh, I'll be an NFL football player," and then their reality job would be something more palatable, more reasonable. You have individuals saying, "Oh, I want to be a doctor because they make a lot of money," and then you do the research and you find out, wait, I got to go to school for like what 12 years, and I got to do math. I hate math. Oh my gosh, I got to do this, and they start to realize, it's truly about the teachers that in the high school to really make it realistic. I had another student that I worked with wanted to be a train engineer, and we went back and forth for like 2 years with the parent, with the mom, and the mom was like, "No, that's what he wants to be," and I was like, it wasn't something that was possible. And so when the dad came, and the mom, he said what he wanted to become, the dad said, "No, that's a hobby. It's something that he enjoys. He likes watching. I don't know what cartoon was that. It's one with the big eyes at the train and stuff like. But that was something that he was interested in watching. It's a hobby that he does. It's not a career. But it's so strange how like something like that can be morphed. It's like, oh no, that's what he wants to become a train engineer. So I told him straight, I was like, okay, so if there's a fire on the train, what do you do? He said, I'll call 911. Okay, good response. But what else would you do? And he had no clue, right? So it's kind of like, you know, really asking the right questions and then looking for alternatives, because for many of them, they want to become a doctor, they research it, and like, I don't want to do it. Okay, what else is there? You know what I mean? And they can find something like medical assistant, so I just want to share that.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, Chad. I appreciate it. I think that fits with a common thread that's come through as well, which is the importance of early integration of getting an understanding of what's available and what the actual requisites of a job or a role are. And also getting that feedback
I want
experience.
to add a little.
Please.
If I might, yes, I think it's from the program perspective. It takes a little bit be creative to find the good match. We work with students constantly have those uh, we call that unrealistic kind of a goal, but then we need to be really tuned into which aspect of that job they are interested in. At University of Iowa Outreach program, students want to be a lawyer working in the legal offices, and then we explore more which aspect of that employment opportunity that's really interesting to the student. Oh, it's because work in the office and work with the files, work with people, around people, that aspect. So we can, that it takes be the program to be creative to find the good match. And we do that through the internship, it's really two-way. One way is for students to experience the chosen career. The other way is for the employer to be familiar, have exposure to students with diverse needs. So I think that's kind of our approach to look at the kind of placement. And
Yeah, thank you. And I see Patrick nodding along there. I guess you have a lot of shared experience in that.
No, I mean, yeah, so it goes back to that discovery process and really getting to know the person. I've worked with a client that or I've heard stories of a client, they wanted to be a pilot, they wanted to be a pilot. And then the agency proceeded to get them a job cleaning toilets at the airport. And is that really what the fit was? And it obviously it didn't work out, it wasn't what they were interested in. So, it really takes getting to know the person and really spending the time. And sometimes that takes months or longer. It really depends. And it takes different iterations, and those internships and those practical application of trying things is so important. So I'm just reiterating what everybody else is saying.
No, that's good. I think, I'm mindful of time. I do want to leave a little bit more for Q&A. So I'm going to wrap up with a final question here, which feeds off of what you just said, Patrick, which is, I'd like to go around everyone and hear what you learned today from somebody else that you'd like to now take back and apply to what you're doing. Does anyone want to volunteer to go first on that? Okay, thank you, Patrick. Go ahead.
Well, what I learned were just some of the global perspectives on how some of these government policies are implemented. And in Hawaii, we have employment first legislation, but it really has no teeth. It's kind of just, oh, yeah, we're an employment first state. Congratulations. We're gonna, offer employment as the first option for people with disabilities. But, what are the support mechanisms? We don't have, funding to provide resources and trainings. Even we have our federal government and large federal contractors are required to have something like a 7% affirmative action to hire people with disabilities, but there's no accountability. So what I'd like to take back were some of the things I heard about from Korea, China, uh, uh, um, there having some of these mandates might be beneficial in our community, and maybe we can get some legislation passed to really enforce the policies. So I appreciate everybody's perspectives on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. And I think you've set a good example there, because if we bounce back and forth, I think we're going to learn something. So I'm going to go to Korea next and ask Dr. Yu, you have something to share.
I teach a transition planning course every spring semester, and I was genuinely really excited to see person-centered planning highlighted in, Patrick's presentation. It kind of affirmed that approach, I already emphasized with my student teacher candidate, that transition planning must be student-centered and rooted in the individual's strength and interest and goals. Anyhow, so what I learned today through this symposium presentation, I felt even more strongly about the vital role of a community involvement in the transition process for a student with disability, not only in terms of work-based learning, but also in areas such as independent living, community participation, and post-secondary education and access to the adult services. So now I'm thinking, how I'm going to incorporate, those concepts in my teaching. One idea, that comes in my mind too, is to have students create digital transitioning planning map that links the students with disability to essential community resources and supports. So these could, include the local employment agency, community colleges with a disability support program, public transportation system, somehow recreational organizations. housing services and mental health or advocacy agencies. So I think this kind of activity will really, help the teacher candidate who will work with a student with disability for their transition planning for their future. So I think I'm, begin to think about what kind of activity and project to implement it in my teaching.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yu. I'm gonna bounce over to China and ask Jean, could you share something you've picked up today that you'd like to apply?
Okay. What impressed me most is Patrick said 3 times job match. I think it is important. We can find a way to balance all the factors and help them to find a suitable job, suitable employer, and make a integration environment for them. And also, I've learned a lot from other countries, Korean, Thailand. We have the common sense. We can work together to find a new way and more pathways for them. Yes,
Thank you. Yeah, this has been very affirming, I think, for everybody. Tavi, I'm going to bounce back to you. What have you picked up today that's been helpful for
I
you?
learned a lot from our chatting today, from another country. But I have noticed that we have like every society we show up that the person with disability are facing challenge. And yeah, every society is facing this problem, and we try to show up like the case and that you show up. And I have learned that so the working with or work for person with disability, including employment for person with it, need to more continuing effort and need uh take time for is the maybe success or not success. We have to learn from those experience, because I think one we have learned and to do like this is make more like a new experience, a new model. So society need the new model, the new case to show them up, to change their mind and to overcome the challenge. So we cannot give up, even though person with the employer, researcher, provider, person who involved this person with disability and including employment. So we have to continue effort and show them a new experience and new story and to change their mind and the new intervention. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tavi. So I'm going to pass back to you, James, because I think you've shown a new model for employment. What did you pick up today that you'd like to apply?
Yeah, I've learned so many things over you guys. I very appreciate you and thank you very much. I remember the success stories from various countries. In the case of Thailand, the Imsu Cafe that employs people with various disabilities, and the case of inclusively integrating urban design and creating public employment environment were impressive. And in the case of China, the case of Hailiang Group, right? Hailiang Group was memorable. It
Yeah,
was
I
also
agree.
applicable. They had a structured employment support framework. Is the step, and it was interesting that they and I remember the noodle shop, noodle shop, 13 noodle shops. It's very interesting. I think it'll be good to expand in China or Korea later by collaborating with our brand Hijbins. among Hawaiian cases, I remember the process of person-centered planning. Person-centered planning. The first step was discovery, career planning, and the second step was developing a vision, and third step was identifying the outcomes, and the fourth step was implementing, monitoring, and adjusting. I like the case that were discussed in each case. Um, yeah, and I like the WTC program. I thought it was a very effective system because they could study while going to the workplace and experiencing firsthand student self-determination and competitive integrated employment. Yeah, it's very important, I think. Yeah, I have learned so many things all of you guys. Thank you.
That's good to hear. And I think you've just handed me a nice bowl to hand back to Jared. Before I go to you, Jared, I know I'm eating into Q&A time, so I apologize for running over here. But Jared, perhaps you'd like to share some thoughts on what you picked up today.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Davey. The thing that I picked up, I learned a lot of history today. The everybody shared about the journeys that our countries and even where we've gone to get to the point where we are now. Uh, I started us from the 60s, but I saw other timelines from other countries where we were all trying to do the same thing, and we are still here trying to figure out how to put this together. What's amazing is the amount of effort, the amount of work, and it motivates me to want to do more, especially here at home, and to be able to share stories and get a real story about the teachers, about the students, about preparing the teachers to go and work with the students. That's really what I picked up on today. There is a big passion to do this work. It's been going on for a long time. There's a lot more to do. And I just applaud everybody's efforts that were here today, especially for all the information that was shared. Um, and uh, and grateful for this opportunity to learn. So thank you, Dr. David.
Thank you, Jared. Jarek, is it okay if I open up for a question?
Technically have 1 minute, but
Okay.
yeah, go
Okay.
for it. Well, you know what? Maybe Kiko will be able to wrap up her comments in 5 minutes, and take a couple more minutes. There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, Chad, I know you've had quite a few questions throughout. If there's one you'd like to bring up now, maybe it's a good time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think what's so huge is many years you have that the high school versus the post high school and so on and so forth. But I think if we work come together and kind of like figure out, okay, high school, what do you need to do to work? Picking up my son. From where? Gym. Okay, thank you. If we work together to figure out what the high school needs to do, um and then to support you folks, for the post high school, I think that would be such a big advantage in setting them up for success. Because I know for a fact that our schools don't really prepare them. They just go through the motion and just not all schools, not all teachers, but a lot of them. Um, and like, what is the vital? I love the fact that I just learned. What was that thing? Uh, how he said. Oh shoot, trying to look for it. Uh, um, the exploration that was stated, like just going into finding out what needs to be done and so on and so forth. What aspect? That's what I love about it. What aspect of the job do you enjoy? Because that you have that big separation from um like, I want to be a doctor. Oh, but what aspect of the job do you prefer? That statement alone is big time. Yeah, it helps the
Mm.
teacher kind of narrow down the situation. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. I feel like, Ken, that one could be directed to you if you have something you want to answer to Chad's comments.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dr. Davy. Um, yeah, Chad said it himself, but there are many success stories, and we saw many, many gaps in the system, and we have a solution for one small slice of this pie. But speaking to what I've learned today, I'm just amazed at our friends from Thailand, Shanghai, Korea. Uh, it's just amazing what you guys are doing, and ironic, yeah, for those of us in the States at the highest levels, man, we're going backwards. But it's okay. We still give them anyway at on the ground. Yeah. But I'm very inspired by our Asian brethren. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I'm going to jump into one question in the chat too. Sor, are you available? You brought up a question. Would you like to ask that? Are you able to speak, or would you like me to ask your question?
Maybe
Okay.
read.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'll read it out. Yeah, so Sor's question was, could you share your idea on how you can raise awareness for entrepreneur and relevant sector understanding and build accessible workplaces? So who would like to take on that one? Patrick,
I might chime in. I came
go on
off. But I think it's once again it goes back to shifting perspectives. So something that we're working on at our Hawaii APSI group is to share stories of people with disabilities, and so we're working on a speakers bureau so they can share their experience. So we have people with disabilities, we have business is kind of sharing these success stories of disability employment. So hopefully by shifting the perspective of this can work, it'll inspire other people with disabilities to think I can do that. It'll show other businesses, oh well, that is actually really practical solution to my hiring needs. So I think kind of recording some of the success stories would be critical to shifting the perspectives in our communities.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. I think I'm going to be good. I better wrap up. So thank you to all the panelists. Very much appreciate everything you've shared and your input today in the discussion. I will pass back over to Jarek for wrap up on our closing comments.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are going to close